So here we are. We're sort of somewhere in the zone of what we were going to have. Well,
Everybody just needs to expect that this is going to start at like 8:40, 8:45. That's just
it is an expectation that should happen going forward, but probably shouldn't use real voice. You should probably go back to the voice that people don't know is the super secret government NASA globe Earth
what are you
collaborator
talking
voice.
about?
All right, yeah, I'm back. Sorry.
Just in case there's any of the same folks that are really concerned about globist conspiracy,
Right.
whole conspiracy. Yeah, it's really hard to maintain. Very stressful to my family. So things that we learn along the way. All right, so welcome everyone. I am, and by everyone, I have no idea who's actually going to this or who is not. I still haven't even sent you the other ones because I've been
Uh, Dude, it's been a week.
the this week was special, very special. That's why I feel
Hmm.
like sharing all the special, super fun time that we're going to have today. So that's also why I brewed a fresh coffee because why wouldn't I want a fresh coffee at 9 o'clock at night?
That's I don't know. That's seems reasonable to me, but I am a drug addict, so
Yes. So I am Dr. Staggs.
I'm Dr. D.
This is Paradox. We're going to talk about
Yeah.
the truth of some of the COVID fashion things and some of the things that we think are going to come out of some of this. There will be a few interesting parts, interesting things we're going to learn along the way. So there should
Sure.
be a couple fun points and a couple fun things to talk about. So one of the first ones that I thought about is can address the elephant in the room of masks, COVID fashion. So what are some of the things that you've seen? Because I'm sure that you're not violating quarantine in any capacity because you definitely don't need groceries, definitely don't need to fix anything around the house, never have to go to Home Depot or
So
anything else.
we've been pretty good with staying home. The biggest things for us in terms of violations are getting the kids out to run the kids,
Okay,
and so that
fair.
but that's typically to a field, and you know,
Okay.
nobody's around. But yeah, I mean, in terms of groceries, we've been getting Instacart to deliver groceries to the house, which is weird, but also
It's
convenient.
a little strange, but yeah, I can see how that would be
And the Home Depot stuff,
useful.
I actually had all of the stuff basically that I needed from like Lowe's or Home Depot,
Mm-hmm.
like during the week before everything hit the fan. Like in
Okay.
the ramp up, I managed to grab a lot of the stuff. And so
Okay.
my big thing that I'm trying to do right now is build a shed in my backyard,
Yeah.
which
Is that
shouldn't
gonna
be
be the new layer?
no.
It's
That's
actually
gonna
gonna do
clear
that.
space from in the garage. Yeah, and then we'll see what happens. Maybe the garage becomes, but it's too dang hot for me to be hanging out in the garage right
So
now. So
speaking of that, that's actually
yeah.
been one of my projects today, matter of fact. Because I had seen the ominous temperatures on the horizon
Oh
and
yeah.
decided that was high time to make some things happen. So I have now cleared out the space where I can bring another workbench in here and really actually set up because I'm trying to ramp up into production to be able to do basically anything I want with printing. So that's going to be a very interesting process. The part of that is going to be you can see kind of behind me to the left part of a top secret project. If there's may not be able to see enough of it, it'll be on my left, it'll be right probably. But
Mhm.
there is a top secret project there, which if you know me, won't actually be any kind of surprise, but if you didn't, you would not exactly be sure what was going on. So that's a couple very important pieces back there. Talking about the headers, those parts for different other projects. I've been working behind the scenes in this whole rush to the PPE process, and that has been an interesting topic. So that has been, I've been trying to do some refinement and testing and development on my own, just make sure that I've got options. And I've learned several interesting things about only PPE, but about making medical devices, about just a whole slew of other things. I'm actually adding the seal material right now to one of my examples of COVID fashion. So it's getting a nice rubberized silicon type seal. There's a number of things that masks are doing and a number of things that masks are not doing. So what things, I guess, first, what things have you heard about this whole process and about the mask wearing and what it is or isn't supposed to do?
So, my understanding, right, is that if you're wearing a mask and you do not have COVID-19 and you're interacting with somebody who does, it's supposed to marginally reduce the chance of you getting it, right? If a person wearing it is if the person wearing the mask has COVID-19, that increases the chances of you as a person who does not have it getting it. Let's try that one more time. If you're interacting with somebody who has COVID-19 and you do not, and they are wearing a mask and you are not, then your chances of getting it are a little bit higher, or actually higher than if you were wearing the mask and they weren't, right? But the safest practice is that if both are wearing the mask, then that should cut down on everything. Now, we talked about this in our first episode, right? Not all masks are created equal, right?
Yeah.
And I know that the CDC guideline right now is basically wear a bandana and you're good, right? Which
Right.
we talked about that episode 1. If you're curious more about, what makes a good mask, then you should check that out. But essentially, there's a couple of things, right? There's porosity of your material, and on the micro and nano level, you're looking at t-shirts, right? A t-shirt material or a bandana, some cloth, right, is exponentially larger than what's going on with an N95 mask.
Yeah, it's significantly more open to a lot of the hazards. So,
But mask good, mask will help, right?
Can help.
But best possible situation is everyone wears mask, right?
Right. Which
now,
is,
again,
that's part of the reason why I think the going into 2021, businesses to be in, going to be business of making designer PPE, because this is
I
one
think that there's going to be
that I
probably
made,
a market,
but I
right?
think there's going to be a market for it because there's such tremendous level. Stores are going to this whole process of, well, now everybody wearing masks, and literally just discussed how there is a time and a place for masks. Also important to note that just because you make a mask and you put material in it or something, not make it an N95 mask. Because an N95 mask has to have gone through this whole range of testing and be approved, having met those specs with patient, vision histories,
There's
project
standards
design
that it has to hit.
documents, all kinds, right? So something that comes off of some 3D printer from eBay not going to be the all end all solution.
Remember, right? We talked about this in our first episode, right? So far we've really had two major topics. It's COVID, which is a obviously it's in the news and it's prevalent and it's a current event, right? And we've talked about flat Earth, right?
Yeah.
But remember from the first episode when we were talking about masks, the one of the major things that makes an N95 an N95 is that it doesn't just rely on porosity of the media that you're filtering through, right? There's multiple stages of filtration that happen. And the reason that it's called an N95 is presumably because it filters out 95% of particulates in the air.
Right. Right. And so there's a number of things about the filtration. One of the other things that's also important is, and there's a story recently, position, or if it was, or that was doing an analysis. They put on a mask and they did a bunch of analysis with a gas analyzer. And what they found out is that masks reduce the overall oxygen that you're breathing because they tend to trap CO2 in front of your face, and so you get a small percentage of oxygen, lose a couple percent of the content being displaced by CO2. A lot of these architectures, that creates a number of issues. Part of the reason why that are wearing in these N95 masks and are sometimes passing out from literally from an actual cause of. One of the big factors to discuss is things like the opening. This is one of the common base designs running around, a bazillion of these. I printed one off because I found the nice clean file where Vader snaps on the front. But this hole is not much bigger. It's 40 millimeters by 40 millimeters. So what is that in freedom units, as the kids are calling them now?
That's just under. That's just under. It's 25.4. Right.
So it's just
Well,
over.
isn't it? It should be just
It's
under 2 inches by two
it's a
inches.
little under. It's a little under, closest to about an inch and a half by an inch and a half, roughly what it is. Well, an inch and a half square hole. Sorry, but your mouth is generally bigger than that.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not, and yes, I
What are you
understand
trying to
people
say?
aren't running around breathing, going. I understand that, right? But the problem is when you're thinking about things like mask design, and then you're adding filtration layers on top of that, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
slow down the airflow, right? What do they do for the air filters in your car? Pleats. A area, surface area. Car doesn't starve for oxygen, right? So
Mm-hmm.
pleats are important to increase the surface area because you need a bigger hole to breathe through. So you're going to literally be deprived of oxygen, and you're going to be in a position where you're not going to be able to literally because your brain is not getting the amount of oxygen. So
Mm.
wearing the masks and running around, you people literally, physiologically speaking, strictest sense, based on actual measurements that have been taken, cannot biologically think straight. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So this is why my design doesn't suck, because I took the things that were terrible about it and I threw it all away. Digital. I replaced it with something way better. Now I have what is much, much closer to about a 3 inch, I think, circle for the dimension off the top of my head. So this is an actual 3 inch circle, almost 3 1/4 inch of actual breathable surface. Overall, this is almost over 3.5 inch OD. So, yeah, over 3.5 inch OD by comparison. And this means that I can actually put this on, especially with the sealing material. It obviously needs the other stuff. This is running 3M filter media that's rated at up to about 70% reduction in the micron or less particle range. So if I put this on, you can actually still hear reasonably clearly. There's not a huge distortion in the voice, and I can still get oxygen very freely and cleanly, but more importantly, I have it as a comfortable adapter to my face. So I can walk around and breathe through this without having quite the same level of oxygen deprivation. But even still, because you're replacing a lot of that oxygen with O2, this is why you get fatigued a lot faster wearing a respirator, generally, than you do using anything else. So having something like this that actually has a large filter area reduces some of the stresses physiologically on your system. So that's why this is way better, way superior to a lot of the garbage that's out there. And I've designed several different sizes, so they're nice and neat, stackable, from children's all the way up to adults. And this actually seems really well. So I'm, of course, going to have to make some different cap designs. This one is just one to try and maximize strength.
Try to work some LED magic in there.
I need to no, not LED, glow wire. It's all about glow wire.
Oh
now.
yeah.
All about.
I just kind of want to look like a Cylon,
right?
If possible.
That's actually not as hard to do as you think, because I can find the
or Knight Rider.
Thingiverse is really great because you can actually get Cylon. There's a couple files for the Cylon helmet.
Oh, I do not doubt it.
And so those exist. But one of the other things that I really like about my design, I want you to hear this in the mic. You haven't actually heard this yet. Listen to this.
Mm.
Hear it on stream. That is a very positive snap.
Yeah.
That is not a thing that sort of loosely holds on with a couple nubs,
right?
Stay on, and could actually, in a situation, just fall off of your mask when someone bumps you or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, my design is way better because I actually understand about how the design requirements are. So it's also not multiple pieces where you have to take up more of the printer bed and all this other stupid inefficiency. So there's a lot that I've learned in this process of developing PPE masks. Some of that actually is in part because of some of the information that I found, and I'll share this particular process. So I'm going to switch over real quick. I think this will set the tone for a number of things that we're doing. I'm going to switch over. This is a guy, Dr. Z Dog. I want you to hear what they're talking about. This will be important, and this will be a little bit loud. So I'll duck this down.
You're a smart person who works on this, and it's your life's calling. And I've heard you talk about this with a kind of passion that you rarely hear physicians talk about their trade. It's really interesting because most of us are kind of cynical and we're like, yeah, it's just a bunch of old people. Scott Weingart is like, we have a calling, we have a mission, this is what we do. And it's like you said, it's maximal
Scott
care,
and
whether it's palliative or whether it's urgent.
Awesome
What's your sort of overall formulation of this thing in terms of advice to the public as we're talking about, Georgia's opening up and this is happening? And I tell you, I'll just give you my piece because it's tough. I go on a roller coaster ride myself. There are days when they just made us wear masks on a trail system. in the Bay. And I'm like, okay, now we've lost our minds officially. But then you look at the New York experience and you're like, hey, you know what? Masks everywhere sounds like a good idea because it's a dense population with a high RO, you know? So what's your thinking? Give us some wisdom.
You're not going to like this answer. See?
I like it already.
Okay. I think the public may have a misunderstanding of what we're attempting to do by social distancing. And
so
I don't know if I should dissuade them from it because it probably leaves them to some solace. But social distancing is not about them not getting COVID. We kind of need them to get COVID, unfortunately. Social distancing is just keeping the case rate per day at a level that hospitals can manage and therefore lowering mortality by us not being overwhelmed. But if no one gets COVID, this ain't ever ending unless the vaccine was to be developed. And I think the 12 to 18 months is wildly optimistic.
They're smoking hot. Yeah.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the public needs to get COVID. They just need to get it at a rate that we can manage.
Okay. So first of all, this is why you are my brother from another mother, because I said exactly that on a rant a couple weeks ago. I said, you guys got to understand what an area under the curve is. You flatten the curve. It doesn't change the overall number of people who get infected. Now, some people are saying, well, no, but we'll come up with a cure before that, man, or a vaccine. Not in 18 months is wildly optimistic. I had Paul Offit on the show. The guy makes vaccines for a living, and he doesn't think that that's a doable thing. So we need people to understand that we have to do social distancing to make sure our hospitals don't get overwhelmed. But at the same time, this is not the cure for the thing. So people who, this is what I hate. This is one of my pet peeves. People who get so high and mighty about that. They're like, you know what? How dare you go to the grocery store without gloves? It's like, are you smoking crack? Like, take a breath. If we just do enough social distancing that our hospitals are okay, that's what we need to, that's the target. We're not trying to bring transmission to zero because that's not, first of all, it's not going to happen. But second of all, it's not what we want. So thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, when you see that joker who's going around, with no mask on, and you want to condone them, condemn them rather, you should be condoning them. They're taking it upon themselves to potentially be the people that keep the curve going to get rid of this virus. Now, you don't want them exposing others, but someone's got to get it. And
And you just hope it's somebody who's not going to die. And this is true. So the next time I'm going to go into the supermarket here in the Bay Area, no mask, complete commando, and I'm going to be coughing into my thing so that people know I'm not going to make them sick. And I'm just going to sing "We Are the Champions" because I am taking a hit for the team. The problem is I'm going to die like a dog in a prone position on BiPAP. No. See, that's the thing. See, I'm going to aspirate. I'm not planning to get intubated. I'm gonna be
you and me both, brother.
Right?
Absolutely.
I'm gonna go out like Jimi Hendrix, man, choking on my own vomit and in a prone position. That's just how I roll, dog. Scott, man. So your wife is can I mention what your wife does? Or
so this is part of why this was so amazing. So how helpful is that information to know in general?
So, really interesting video, right? Absolutely great perspective and something that we're not seeing or discussing really in mainstream media, right? Now I've known a few people, family members who have had COVID-19. I've my dad and my uncles are all cardiologists, and I'm pretty sure they've all had it at this point. And yeah, sorry, I forgot I turned that on. That should have been great.
I was aware it was on, but
yeah, no, I don't have the. All right, anyway, doesn't matter. So I've had some family members who've had this, and it's the symptoms and everything. It's not. They're innocuous, really, for most of the population, right? And what they are saying is true, right? We're trying to flatten the curve, right? But that doesn't mean that the overall population who gets it is going to be less. It just means that we're extending the time. But what we really want to be doing is not slamming our healthcare system, right? Now, do we need to close everything down? Well, no, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to close everything down. The thing that people are getting bothered about, right, is the fact that we feel like we're all trapped in our homes at this point, right? And unless you have some, or unless you're living with somebody who is high risk, right, for complications to COVID-19, right? We don't close the whole country down for flu season,
No,
right?
we don't. That's one of the things
It's,
that we're going to
it's
get to is data, where some of this progression actually happened. So the difference between truth and fiction, and where some of the news stories are coming out. One of the ones about how well, the numbers just have to be underreporting. They have to be low. The counts, they can't be right. They just can't be right. They have to be higher than this
well,
because
I
that
mean,
fits
here's
your agenda. Like,
what do you want? Like, again, this goes back to some of the stuff that
so
we talked about
stupid.
in one of the flat Earth episodes, right? Is don't bastardize the scientific method, right?
No,
Just because you want a specific result. You can't, that's not the point of science. That's not the point of, if you're looking at the data to see whether or not we're flattening the curve, then yes, we are expecting, right, from the social distancing that this should be coming down, right? That's what we're expecting. And for you to go out and be outraged that there's this decrease in cases that are being reported is counter to everything, right? Now, I feel like overall this entire situation has been handled poorly from Jump Street, okay,
that's
um, and that's me
that's
being
putting it
nice about
nicely.
yeah,
Wow, I couldn't have done that. Thank you, because I could never say that so nicely.
and so
Uh,
so that's really, it's like I get it, and so from a political standpoint, I understand what's happening, right?
yeah,
We've got a Republican president, and of course, they're not going to shut down the federal government because that's anti-Republican, right? Then you've got the Democrats who are all up and they're all bunched up, right? Because, well, the federal government needs to make the decision, right?
right, yeah,
And nobody's happy. Nobody's happy. We're the regular people. Nobody's happy by what's going on, right? Because now you've got all the states that are following suit, right? And it's just this, like, if you want to open, right? But do it in a way that's safe for people.
yeah,
And if you're, again, if you're in a profession where you have to go to work, right, and you can't work remotely, then that's one thing, right? But if you can work remotely, do it, right? Just kind of bite the like bite the bullet.
yeah.
It'll cost you a month, right? Now I understand that there's large majority of the population who are on hard times right now because
Well,
things
because
closed down,
right, because we shut
right?
down Earth.
Yeah, and
So
that is a different issue, right?
so
And I
part of the
understand that's why the reason that the stimulus checks came out. I understand that. I do not think that. I do think that some of the funniest things that come off the internet, though, have been um, people turning around the whole, "Oh, you don't have 2 months paycheck saved up? Well,
yeah,
what's wrong with you, large corporations?" Right?
right,
I find those comical, right? But
right. Well, and that's
again, you have to understand how a large corporation works, though, too, right?
right.
Most of their money is
There's
flowing.
a yeah, there's
Yes,
such
they
thing
have a
as a
net worth,
cash flow.
but yeah. But anyway, that's
Well, you're hitting on a lot of really important key this particular topic. I think there's some more that needs to be pointed out there. So one of them is this idea that you've got to flatten the curve. I understand where the terminology comes from and on and on. Understand why they're trying to do that in a way that seems presentable and seems benevolent and all these other. They had a choice, right? And they so the best thing for the US, for the economy overall, would have been to, some regards, not do any of this response with shutting everything down, but just allow things to happen. And there were a lot of backroom discussions because, let's just say, suffice it to say, because reasons, I know there were backroom discussions about what to do about this. And the two options were, do we try and save the hospitals so that we can maybe save some lives, or do we save the economy? So they decided to put maybe saving some more lives in front of and ahead of the economy, because they looked at the statistical data and they determined that, well, probably we're due for a recession anyway, so this will force us into either a recession or, perhaps more likely, a new Great Depression. Knows what else, because we decided that bread lines would be a good thing again. I was in a line for freaking Home Depot today where I'm trying to buy insulation. I dragged a cart in and people looked at me like I was a space alien. It was ridiculous because you have to wait in this line 6 feet apart and do all this stuff, and the people are in masks and people are on there. Oh my gosh, Judy, there's so many people here. Oh my God.
What did you think was going to happen?
You're wearing a mask, you're not using gloves, you're running around touching everything, touching your phone, touching your face, adjusting your mask and doing the thing, and they're counting the people in and out, and there's, okay, wait, you gotta wait, sir, and there's the traffic directing at the front doors. This all ridiculous nonsense. I drag a cart in because it's been sitting out in the sun in Arizona. Do you know how hot the surface of that cart was? There's not living stuff on that cart because I barely had skin left on my hand, right? It's just, we have lost our collective minds. And so I came home pretty wound up because I was frustrated at all of the level of stupidity, at people running around wearing masks but not wearing gloves. And the people that are wearing gloves are doing stupid things like touching all the things that they're walking through, touching everything in the store, touching their phone, touching their face, adjusting their mask and fidgeting and playing with their hair, and and then they're standing in the middle of the aisle with their hands on their hips with the mask out.
Let's talk about,
stay 6 feet away from me, and they're blocking the whole stupid aisle.
So here's the thing, right? The PPE, and this is something that all science and engineering folk probably know, because anybody who's had to take a chem lab, right, will know this, right?
Should. I taught a lot of students in chem labs, so I know. Yeah, we have to beat
they
them
should.
over the head and
Let's change. They should.
Stick.
This is something that is covered there.
Yes.
Right? So
never would allow me to use a paintball gun just as a demonstration point for PPE. I really think that would be a much more effective way to do it.
So you need to know, you need to understand about PPE is that there is a correct way to use PPE and an incorrect way.
No, let's be clear. Many incorrect ways to use PPE.
There's
the
one
first and most
way,
notable of which
basically
is putting the goggles up above on your forehead, so that when the acid splashes, you have this nice outline of the goggles where they should not have been. Right.
Right. And so gloves, right? Gloves work if you wear them correctly, right? And so wearing them correctly isn't the hard part, but when you touch things, right, and then you touch other things that aren't in a glove, now those things are not clean. And then later, when you haven't disinfected those things that you've touched with your gloves, you've now defeated the entire purpose of you wearing the gloves in the first place.
So the thing with
Right.
the dispose your gloves and your masks here at the cart return and the
Also, there's a correct way to take your gloves off so that you minimize
you don't
the
just
amount
grab it
of.
at the end and you pull and you throw it in the street.
You go one, then you take the other one because now it's inside out and it potential should be clean. You take the other one, right?
Yeah.
And now you take it in this hand and you take the other one off using the other glove as
Yeah,
a glove.
carefully with the thumb up under the lip of the glove
Yeah,
so that
yes.
you aren't. Yeah, like that is the
And I'm a
proper
mechanical
technique.
engineer.
Right.
I'm a mechanical engineer and I know that.
I'm a chemical engineer. I've been through. You just don't even want to know how many pair of gloves I have been through. I am a serial killer to glove boxes. They do not last very long. I freaking wear gloves to do like meat prep and stuff all the time at home because the like raw chicken is basically one of the nastiest substances. But beef is expensive right now, heading into a meat shortage because everybody in meat packing plants is sick and we're still gonna die. I
Out
hate
here,
COVID.
there's a lot of dairy farms, so
Yes, there are a lot
pretty
more.
sure.
We are better off than most of the country right now.
Pretty sure I'll just go steal a cow, and that'll be good for a while.
Yeah, nobody will shoot you for stealing cows around.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing is, I'd like to see how you're gonna figure out how to get the cow into the vehicle.
Don't worry. I'm one step at a time. One step at a time.
You're gonna need quite the block and tackle system.
I
But
mean,
you're a mechanical engineer. You can run the numbers,
figure it out.
right? So what's a couple
Well, I don't know. It
thousand
depends
pounds?
on who you talk to. I might not be able to.
Right.
Depending on which one of my students you talk to.
Right. Your only superpower is grading harsh.
Exactly.
So that. Yeah. So there's a lot of information that is circulated around. So let's track a little of the information and so starting here, going back to about March 27th, is this information about talking about severity of outcomes and all of these things and why this is important. And so there's been all of these deaths and certain percentages. So they go through all the different numbers and case fatalities percentages. And so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time in this, just to point out that this is where a lot of the information is, a lot of the hype was building, and that's why this is why a lot of states were locked down during this time. And so this is where some of these other groups like this one, University of Minnesota, is out there saying, there's a death toll, it's gotta be higher, it's got to be higher because they've got to be underreporting. And all the news reporters this last week or whatever have been asking about why are the numbers so low, why are they underreporting, we got to be missing some, we're missing them. So there's people dying somewhere and under bridges and dying of COVID or something, right? Ridiculous is that? Earth, I don't understand.
We shouldn't be calling for bad things to happen.
Like no, like I had an uncle that was very wise. One of the things that he taught me that was very important was never challenge worse. This could have been, in many ways, far worse. So in a lot of ways, they could have had just an example of a graph, right? They could have had just this extreme spike happen of these cases. And so in a lot of ways, what would have been best for the economy would have been just to let those that were susceptible and are the people that are going to die of COVID die very violent, ugly deaths. When people react to this, they die very violent and deaths, and it's very unfortunate. So nobody in their right mind would be downplaying that. The point is, there are a whole ton of people, something like 500,000 people, now probably closer to 600,000, 700,000, that have had COVID already didn't even know about it
Yeah.
at all. They just found out, oh, I tested positive for the antibodies, so I've already had it. Yeah, there was like that 1 week where I didn't really feel good, but whatever. So there's been a lot more of that proportionally. So we're going to get to where some of the data comes from. But that Michigan study, um, that Minnesota University of Minnesota study, um, that that article is getting information from places like this where it's talking the rates and positive rates and all these things. And so you see a lot of like kneeing over a curve already
Hmm.
happening. And so yes, there's more tested and percent of positive tests, and so you're doing lots of tests and you're getting a lot of positive results. That doesn't mean that all of these people are hospitalized, for
Hmm.
one, because a lot of them have already had it. And so because they
Well,
test
not
positive,
just that, right? We also have a shortage of tests going around. So even people who might be positive really may not have been tested,
right?
right? And so I heard, I didn't read this study. I had a friend who told me about this. So take this as you will, right? It's at best third hand information at this point, right?
Sure.
Um, but there was a study where they took a random sampling of homeless people, and gave them COVID tests, and many of them came out with antibodies already.
Yeah,
And so, like you
I
were
saw
saying,
that actually.
right? This could be, it could be that many of us have already had it, right? It's just,
Right. This
this is a
The
mass.
whole thing smacks of uh we we ready fire aimed
Hmm.
so hard. Like no, that doesn't even cover what we did. Is we ready nuke aimed, and so
In the
everybody
gaming community, this is
was.
called, you're pre-firing the corner. You're expecting somebody to be there, so you're just going to shoot the corner.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, no, yeah, no.
You throw your grenade.
They
You're going to
lit they lit up that. There's not a corner left. They like it is gone.
yeah.
There is not anything
They put the Pop
resembling
Tart in the
structure
microwave for 5 minutes, man.
left. Yeah, no, and then burned the entire city down when
Yeah.
that caught fire, because that's how completely extremely over
Hmm.
this has been. So some of the further information to develop, not only are the number of overall tests and positive results and things, not only are those actually going down, and it seems like the data is pretty conclusively on the downward curve, which physicians clarified literally got people talking about. Cumulative, this is far more. Yeah, we are probably now something more like something cumulative since March 1st, currently to something like 700,000 positive tests.
Hmm.
We're nowhere near 70,000 deaths from COVID. We're going to talk about where all of that is in. Our infection rates are going down, hospitalization rates, everything decreasing week over week over week over week right now. And so we're found the knee of the curve
Hmm.
already, but people are still extending out, like Ducey, way to the 15th of this month,
Yeah.
17. Thankfully, unlike other states, and this is also a really, really important point, we'll jump to this one in just a second, but uh, unlike other states, Ducey has not declared that, for one, churches are non essential services. Two, he has not forbidden them to meet person, which a lot of other states have in fact done, to the extent that in places like New York, they're they're actually calling in to get for their they've been trying apparently to set up something so people can call in and snitch on people that are violating quarantine. And I think one of the greatest things that happened is apparently, um, uh, your most of your family is up in New Jersey area.
Yes.
So have any of them talked about any of this stuff that's going on, like the
Not
snitch
not
lines and
recently.
things?
So my brother's wife is a pediatric ICU nurse, and so he's just been he's been working from home and taking care of
Yeah.
they have a 9-month old.
Okay.
Um, so that hasn't really been a thing. My dad, like I said earlier, right, my dad and the rest of my family are all medical professionals, and so they've all they've all been just business as usual.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything about
But this may be something that's more focused in specifically, because apparently one of the
and
things
I
they're
think that video kind of touched on this a little bit, right? Your population density is really what needs to be driving a lot of these decisions, right? How many people, like a city like New York City has ton of people, and they're all like prisoners in high story prisons, right? Like
yeah,
if you think about, so I had a friend that moved to New York City a few years ago, and he and his wife were looking at it was a 9 by 9 apartment, right?
yeah,
It was like the tiniest apartment you ever heard of, and the rent was more than my mortgage payment,
yeah,
right? And so it's like people pay to live in these very tiny things so they can live in New York City because there's a lot of convenience by living in the city, right?
sure.
Unfortunately, all of that convenience has now been shut down,
Yeah. Well, and so
right?
this whole
Um,
snitch line thing is I personally find satisfaction in what has been done about the snitch line. So I'll share this quick. So here's the title. Uh, De Blasio's snitch line met its inevitable fate because it has been just inundated with. I'll go
Inevitable.
ahead and let you read some of the text there, but it's been inundated with all sorts of inappropriate photos, uh,
mhm.
photos of people that need to
Well,
get the message,
you've got
Hitler
right. Well,
memes.
you've got to remember, people are people are bored, and now you are giving people an outlet, a creative outlet to troll you, right? And
Right.
people
That's,
love to troll when they're bored. Like
yeah, yeah.
it's a
So it's
fact, right?
that
That's
is
just it is what it is.
that is not surprising at all, at all,
No,
not
no, it
surprising at all.
is not.
So yeah, it's there's so many interesting, but yeah, that's one of the things that I think was actually really really good. So I'll get to one of the other key points here. The discussion pushed beginning of role in okay, well, what's the severity of underlying health conditions? So there's all sorts of the criteria and things that people are noticing, and need to maintain certain supplies, and this is just part of what the process is. And the CDC is clearly community mitigation strategies with aim to slow the spread. Um, this is the just only aimed to slow this. None of this ever was about prevention at all. People that are about, oh my gosh, you're all gonna die in this. I've literally heard in multiple instances, people, because I've been walking around in some of the stores and stuff without masks, right? People have been walking around. I've literally
You
heard
want
people
to,
say,
if you really want to turn it around
"I'm
on
gonna
them,
die
be
in
like,
this store."
No, you should just look. If you just next time that happens, just look at them and be like, "Look, I'm a survivor,
Right?
right? I just
right.
got out. I already had it. I'm
Right.
good.
Yeah. I don't know for certain if I have. I'm not going
Or
to.
just start coughing.
Right. That's one way to handle it. So let's talk actual data. So I pulled a terrible number. It sucks. There's actually a lot of very useful data. One of the first parts is as of May 1st, total COVID deaths, because you keep seeing reports of over 30,000, whatever else.
Mm-hmm.
Total pneumonia deaths. The pneumonia deaths beforehand, something on the order of 3,500
Mm-hmm.
a week. 3,500 weeks going on. So influenza deaths, something like 5,000. Apparently, there's been some revisions, and that's what this key number. So deaths that were pneumonia related, but they had
Mm-hmm.
COVID-19 system. So those COVID
Yeah.
deaths include about 7 because the
Right.
7 so uh simple math here because I can do math, you can do math, we can do math together, right? um
I have a
37,000,
button that will let me bring up my
right,
calculator right
right.
now.
So I don't have it screen shared in a way that I can show the calculator, but I'm going to have you calculate these numbers. 37,000
Okay.
plus 64,000
Mm-hmm.
plus 600, 700. Count for the couple of
Oh.
them. Plus 16,500
Okay.
plus 5,150. How many total deaths is
Okay. 124,050.
it's not even remotely close to 90,000. So deaths with pneumonia in for COVID. So total deaths,
Mm-hmm.
total overall with all categories, 90,000. We just by simple math demonstrated that it's not COVID deaths plus pneumonia deaths plus the influenza deaths. It's actually uh, COVID plus pneumonia plus influenza minus ones that are double counted because
Mm-hmm.
of the such. So out of that 37,000, only about 20,000 of them are actually COVID only, and many of those can
Well,
also be ascribed to have
I
underlying conditions and some other things. Well,
right.
that's the
Well, I
numbers
think the
from the
important thing.
CDC.
I think the important thing to take out of these numbers is Americans need to be better at regularly going to the doctor, and myself included. Okay.
Yeah,
But we need to be better about making sure that we get in yearly for our physicals, get all the testing done that we need, right? Because you need to know if you have significant comorbidities for
yeah,
other diseases, right?
yeah,
There was I heard something on the news a few weeks ago that people were thinking that there might be a relationship between um, you know COVID deaths and having diabetes, right? um, Really, you need to know if you're at risk for any health issues, right? Because if you have underlying health issues, everything else stems from that. And things that are bad for others are significantly worse if you have other underlying comorbidities. And if you don't know about them, you're asking for trouble.
right.
So the real takeaway here is know yourself, right? Get to the doctor yearly, get your physicals, get your blood work, understand where you are health wise, right? Because
Yeah,
if you are a healthy person, typically, if you get sick, yeah, it sucks, but it's not it's not typically that bad. You'll get better. If you're an unhealthy person, then it's going to be worse for you. If you're
yeah.
unhealthy and you don't know about it, that's
That's
another problem.
that's a different sort of problem. Right. So that's part of the problem is all of the so one of the other things, a lot of the a lot of the deaths that are being seen in the hospital are there are some that are dying because of damage to the lungs. In some instances that's actually damage to the lungs because of the mechanical ventilators that they're using. There's a whole bunch of things that are not working standard, and that's what that particular podcast that I referenced on Dog MD's. There's a lot of really useful information about their medical professional talking in medical language. I understand it because I was a licensed medical provider, so I understand a lot of this terminology. So actually have the background, the depth, the theology, the biochemistry, etc., 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 to be able to follow their discussions of viral pathology or the progression arc that their patients take with different scenarios and all these. One of the most interesting things that we talked about was this cytokine storm that happens, and so body, because of some combination of things that they're seeing, and they don't understand it because they don't have the time to sit down and study and think about it. They're too busy trying to figure out if there's a way to keep some of these patients alive through this process, because they aren't curing the virus at the hospital. They're trying to support the body's ability the best they can to fight off the virus. There isn't a drug that they can just give them. There's not going to be a just super miracle drug, turn around and get it ready to go. That's not how any of this stuff works. All of the testing for medical devices, for getting FDA approval on drugs and all these takes so much more time than everyone thinks. And that's a good thing, right? Because the last time, and we talked about the podcast, the last time that we rushed through a vaccine, a whole bunch more, tens of thousands of people died from the vaccine itself because there were complications that were not brought up in the study, or not seen because they didn't have enough patients in the trial or whatever it was, because they fast tracked it because we need a vaccine or else. Can't do that stuff because that's not how it works.
I mean,
that's why
it's the
people are
same
dangerous
as
in their
people.
reaction.
Well, it's the same as people who are taking what's it, the hydroxychloroquine,
Yeah,
right? You're ingesting a product that is not FDA approved for that purpose,
yeah.
right? It is approved to clean your fish tank.
Off-label drug,
This yeah,
right?
this is the same as you going to your kitchen sink and pulling out the Clorox and saying, "Well, I'm going to disinfect my insides with it," right?
Right?
You wouldn't do that.
Terrible idea.
Yeah. If you're watching this, don't do that.
Right. Or eat Tide Pods
Please.
or whatever other stupid challenges going around. Much hand
Right. But
sanitizer
anyway,
can I drink?
right.
Sure, that's going
Yeah.
around.
Don't do those things. That is not a good idea. It wasn't a good idea before this. It won't be a good idea after this. It's certainly not a good idea right now.
So
Please
much.
don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do
So there's a lot of things that you'll learn from this process, and so there's good information that will come out of it. There are medical practices that will come out of sort of the post-mortem entirety of the process, lessons learned, best
Well,
practices.
I'm sure there's going to
etc.
be tons of grand rounds about this and lessons learned and, morbidity and mortality conferences and all the other things that
They're even
medical
going to
students
have to
really enjoy
pull
doing.
data out, right? Because one of the things that they're seeing is a large number of the patients dying from this are actually dying in many regards from blood clot related problems, because this seems to people that have, and there are certain people groups, certain ethnicities that have a
Mm-hmm.
predisposition to high clotting factor. There's a few specific genes that can upregulated those particular. I don't know all of the depth of, and they go into a little more detail in that same particular. The idea
Mm-hmm.
is they're seeing some interesting things about how people with these high blood clot factor, or high blood clot risk factor, those are some of the people that are dying after they've already gotten through the process where their lungs are functioning again. They end up in a state where they get to be at the point where they're strong enough to be off the ventilator, and then all of a sudden they throw a massive blood clot, just
Mm-hmm.
clogs something like the aorta, like an aortic aneurysm um, happening or something, as a result of aortic embolism, or like there's all kinds of stuff that they're seeing like that. So they aren't dying directly from the effects of the virus, they're dying from a secondary thing, underlying condition that they were predisposed to, that the virus just sort of accelerates. And so the virus itself isn't killing them. Their own genetic predisposition to high blood clot factor killed them. And so people have heart attacks and all this other stuff. That's all going into these COVID deaths. And so when some of these other institutions come out and say, well, death count has to be higher, it just has to be higher, we've got to be missing people. The fact that they tested all of those homeless people and found that they've already had it says that there isn't a population of people just dying under a bridge of COVID. And so there are no like hidden results. There's no other group of votes that suddenly get discovered on the back of a truck driven by, a Democrat probably. But there's so many things, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. So there's a lot of lessons learned that are going to come out of it, but I hope one of those lessons learned is people go, wait a minute, we need to not do something so major as shut down the economy of Earth, because the thing is, we us have access to still food and supply chains, supply lines that are
Mm-hmm.
still functioning right now, and actually functioning quite well. I'm shocked that they're functioning as well as they are. But again, that points to there being less of an overall effect than some of what people are. So yes, we probably are going to go into some meat shortages or something for a few months, but at the end of the day, that could turn out to be for the overall benefit, health and wellness. People will be forced to eat vegetables. Oh my gosh!
I
I'll
think
die.
that all of this is pretty much summed up. Right, we're shutting down. Who? All right, I'm gonna put the hat on, the tinfoil hat. Right,
Right?
who benefits most from Earth's economy shutting down?
Aliens. It's aliens.
So, 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 so Simon Dan did a show recently. There's some guy that has a bunch of subscribers, apparently here in Phoenix somewhere, describing how on the week after, like April 10th, sometime that week, he had this really super vivid lucid dream, and basically
Mm-hmm.
his dream was Independence Day. The government was lying, and COVID was the cover to get everybody home so that they would see all the projections from all the satellite network. Be a ship, be a
Okay.
hologram, wouldn't be real, and
Okay, so
way out there. I mean, way out there. But this is one of the problems of people
yeah.
not being able to. And this guy is apparently a Christian, and because he's convinced that God gave him this vision of exactly what's going to happen. Sorry, dude. Turns out you're not a prophet, because we're more than like almost 20 days after your prophecy, and no projections of Independence Day seen in the sky. So yeah, turns out you're not a prophet. Sorry.
Oh,
But you
yeah.
can't just run around spewing nonsense like that.
Well, the beauty of things is the world is that you can, because that's how the internet works.
Right.
So,
But there's guys like that focused on a problem of that sort, whereas there's
yeah.
other people that are dependent entirely on real thin margins for the U.S. to import all kinds of countries.
Yeah.
Those people have, in an instant, been put completely out of business uh, for who
Which I
knows how
think
long.
leads to an important point, right? If you are able to, because certain local businesses are still open, right,
Yeah,
in your area, guaranteed.
and
If you
I'm
are
supporting
able
those
to,
and
you
patronizing
should
those.
support them.
Yeah,
hmm We've
100%
been
I
doing
am.
it mostly with restaurants,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
mostly that's what's
Try
open,
and where
right?
and how we can, and they're very appreciative of the
Mhm.
orders, because
Yeah.
those are some of the small scale things we can do to
hmm
do this. I
Also, hoard all of your stimulus money and hide it in a hole in your backyard.
that's that's a terrible idea, because that stimulus money is going to become worth even less money, because they're going to mint a coin, a couple coins, and then proposals. They're going to mint a couple coins, then
Oh
the Fed's
yeah.
going to buy them. So that's this accounting clamshell trick. So it's kind of like, here, you have a receipt, I have a an item, a good, and so if you give me the receipt and then I give you the good, it's basically like we had a transaction, right?
So, so this is a trick. I learned this. So I'm gonna preface this. All right? I've learned this by watching the show Intervention. Okay, and this is a trick that the drug addicts use. You go to
Yeah.
the CVS and you shoplift the candy. Okay, then a couple days later you go back to said CVS and you return said candy for money. This is what this sounds like to me. Right?
That's
This is
exactly what it is.
it's
It's
like, hey,
exactly
I
what
want.
this is why Walmart checks receipts at the door, okay? It's exactly what
Mhm.
it is, so that people can't pick up a stupid receipt outside. I didn't know this because I'm too stupid to be a criminal. They pick up a receipt outside, they
You're not
would
too
take it
stupid to
into
be a
the
criminal.
store,
You're just
they
too
they would
too nice,
find
I
the
guess.
items, then they would drive the cart back around to customer service and return all of those new items, and then go shopping for their actual stuff.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
I am
I'm
too stupid to be a criminal, plain and simply. Yeah.
yeah,
So,
that's
but that's part of the reason that all of the response to all of this has frustrated me. And the talk that, well, we're
mhm.
just going to have to start, wearing masks, and people are generating fashion masks is like the new thing. That's why we're doing
Yeah.
COVID fashion as part of the title, because if I and Costco is going to require a mask, so I'm not going to be wearing this one. I don't think I'm going to go full Vader
Yeah, I was gonna
mask,
say
and
you probably should.
I'm going to go to Costco and shop full Vader, because
hmm
that's what they deserve, because the whole thing is stupid. And they
Yeah,
mask literally does nothing, or like, there is no, like, the virus is in the wind and in the air around. If anything, this is on surfaces of stuff that you're touching with hands while you're wearing a mask. Dolt. We're really
yeah.
frustrated at
Well,
people today, because just they
it's all right.
it's frustrating.
It's It's that time
And
of the
these
year.
people are dangerous because all of the. So that's why we're going to
Well, because
have
it's
another
fanatical,
topic
right?
coming up
Yeah.
about why consensus is dangerous. That will be an interesting talk. That one actually needs some
But
preparation behind.
preview of next week. We have confirmed a top tier expert guest.
Oh, awesome! Fantastic.
We will be discussing whether or not humans can live on Mars with special guest Professor Emmy Tomford, who has written
Nice.
blogs on the subject.
Nice.
So
Nice. Yes, she is. She is our resident expert.
Talking about aliens.
as we were before. So.
I don't know much about aliens, aside from the fact that they are
If
exactly
they-
who gave us the pyramids, and that the
Mhm.
pyramids are.
I mean, I've seen
actually just
Stargate,
walking
which was a great documentary.
Yes, it is a great documentary. I'm pretty sure that's what cosmologists do. They sit around and write differential equations while watching reruns of Stargate, trying to figure out the coordinates.
I mean, the work of Daniel Jackson is important and needs to get out there.
It does.
So
It does. Yeah. So I think that pretty well does it for us, and I may be frozen. Not frozen in OBS.
Looks like you're
but
frozen. Yeah,
video's
you're
still
frozen on stream. So
yeah, I don't know. That's a good ending point. Good ending point. So, yeah.
yeah. All right. Well,
All right.
like we
We'll
said,
be-
next week, can people live on Mars?
Yes. We'll work on sorting out.
Also, next week will be on Friday instead of Saturday. Same
Yes.
time, just a day earlier.
A day early.
Mm-hmm. All righty.
All right. Thank you all for tuning in. All one, but that's good. So we will Friday and have a lot of fun and interesting entertainment.
Yep. All righty. All right. Well,